Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into an idea that can feel pretty contentious in the world of creative pursuits, especially writing. It's called writing to market. Is it selling out, or is it actually a smart strategic path to success? We're about to unpack this fascinating debate.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we've pulled insights from an author's incredibly candid look at the publishing world. Specifically, from the book Write to Market, Deliver a Book That Sells. Our mission today, cut through the noise, give you a shortcut to understanding this often misunderstood strategy. We'll highlight the practical steps and even the, well, surprising psychology behind creating books, or really any product or service that readers and consumers genuinely want.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we talk about writing market, what exactly is it according to our source? And, why does it have such a nasty connotation for some authors?
Well, the source is very clear. This is definitely not about simply copying popular books.
Right, like all those Hunger Games clones we saw a while back?
Exactly. Hundreds tried that, and, well, most of them just fell flat. Instead, the author defines it more like picking an underserved genre that you know has a voracious appetite and then giving that market exactly what it wants.
Yeah.
The core idea is knowing that hungry audience is waiting before you even start writing.
That's a really key distinction.
It is, because fundamentally there are two paths, right? You can create then market, or you can create to market.
Yep.
And the source argues the latter has a much higher chance of success.
And the author experienced this himself.
Oh yeah, firsthand. His first novel, No Such Thing as Werewolves, became a top seller. But later, he realized he'd accidentally written it to market, almost by intuition.
Huh.
But then he tried the create then market approach. He wrote a spin-off called Hero Born, pitched it as X-Files meets Heroes. He was proud of it, had a big mailing list, new marketing, but it sank like a rock.
Much.
Yeah. And the specific failure point was clear. It wasn't designed with a specific market's desires in mind. It wasn't written to market.
Wow, that's a tough lesson.
Yeah.
You mentioned other authors in the source material, though. Did they have similar turning points?
Absolutely. The source shares several really powerful examples. There's his friend, Domino Finn. His urban fantasy book, Dead Man, written directly to market, really took off. Meanwhile, an earlier book he wrote, also well-written but not hitting those market tropes, didn't do nearly as well.
Interesting.
Then there's Dawn McKenna. She struggled for years with a literary novel, earning like 2 figures a month, barely anything. But then she worked with another author, Wayne Stinnett, wrote a series to market in the sea adventure genre, and jumped to 5 figures a month.
5 figures. That's a huge difference.
Massive. And Caddy Vance, another example. Sold almost nothing with her clever young adult novels. Switched to romance, wrote to market, and made more in 30 days than the entire previous year. So what's fascinating here, and the point the author really hammers home, is how these authors realized the kind of story they chose to tell dramatically affected their careers. Understanding your audience isn't just, a marketing tactic. It's a foundational creative decision.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener? If you're thinking about writing or maybe creating anything for an audience, it sounds like the first step is finding that sweet spot
Okay.
between what you, the creator, genuinely enjoy and what your audience actually wants.
Exactly.
And this also hits that selling out myth head on, doesn't it?
It does. The source argues pretty convincingly, I think, that if you want to entertain legions of people with fun books or products you actually enjoy creating, well, designing to market is the way. It lets you earn a living while still loving what you do. It's not about abandoning passion. It's about channeling it effectively.
Right. So how do you actually find that market? The source talks about using Amazon, right?
Precisely. Amazon is the primary research tool here. And yeah, romance and erotica are huge, like 60% of the top 100 books, huge. But there are lots of other profitable genres. You browse the categories, the subcategories, see what readers love.
And there's a specific metric to watch.
Yes, the crucial one is the Amazon Bestsellers Rank, or ABSR. Think of it like this. If a category's top books, say the top 20, are all ranked super high overall on Amazon, maybe all in the top 1,000, that's a red-hot category. Huge competition. Fierce.
Okay, so maybe avoid those starting out.
Probably, yeah.
Hmm.
The ideal scenario, the sweet spot the source describes, is where the hashtag one book is doing great, ranked really high. But the books further down, like number 20 or maybe number 40, are still selling well, but maybe ranked, say, hashtag 2,000 or hashtag 8,000 overall. That signals a healthy, hungry market. Lots of readers buying, but it isn't completely saturated yet. There's room.
Gotcha. And the author found an example of this.
He did. He found military science fiction, surprisingly, was underserved. He described it as hungry and needing feeding.
Okay, let's shift gears a little because this next idea seems really core to writing to market.
Yeah.
Tropes. What the heck is a trope in this context? And why is understanding them so critical?
Right. Tropes are fundamental. And here, a trope isn't just, a figure of speech. It's a plot trick, a narrative structure, a character type, or any other recognizable storytelling device.
Like a cliffhanger ending or the grumpy boss character.
Exactly. Those are minor tropes. The key isn't just knowing them, though. It's understanding how to blend the familiar with something fresh. Readers want that recognition, but they also want to be surprised and delighted by your unique take within the genre's expectations.
And you mentioned minor tropes.
Mhm.
Are there different kinds?
Yeah, the source breaks it down into major tropes. Those are the big, overarching plot or setting structures. And minor tropes, smaller things, like a specific character type, a setting detail, a plot device.
Oh.
And both are vital. Let's look at some examples from the source. In romance, major tropes are things like HEA, happily ever after, or HFN, happy for now. That offers satisfaction, maybe a bit less definitive. Minor tropes, the initial meet-cute between the hero and heroine, the central conflict keeping them apart, the big crisis point near the end.
Makes sense. What about something different, like military science fiction?
Okay, MSF. Major tropes there often include humanity under attack, maybe by a mysterious or long-lost enemy. You often see incompetent or obstructive military leadership, and usually it comes down to one specific ship or crew having to save the day against the odds.
Sounds familiar. And minor tropes.
Things like the aging starship, think Battlestar Galactica, or the Maverick Captain, like James T. Kirk. Classic examples.
Okay, and you mentioned cozy mysteries. Those seem very specific.
They are. Major tropes. Almost always a female amateur sleuth who stumbles into the mystery. Often a handsome sheriff or maybe an FBI agent. Critically, a happy ending, no cliffhangers, and very little described violence.
And the minor ones give it that cozy feel.
Exactly. The protagonist might own a yarn shop or a cupcake bakery. The victim is often unpopular. There's often a wisecracking granny, and almost always a small-town setting.
One more epic fantasy.
Big one. Major tropes. The ordinary farm boy who turns out to be the chosen one. The looming threat of the dark one. Minor tropes. A magical sword. The kindly mentor figure like Gandalf, maybe an animal sidekick, or that snarky rival like Draco Malfoy.
Right, lots of building blocks there.
Tons. And you'll never learn all of them, but the source stresses understanding the common ones in your chosen genre is crucial. But, and this is important, it's not just about plugging in tropes like logo bricks. Stories are about characters.
Ah, yes, the people.
They need to be likable, believable, flawed, but also genre appropriate. This is key. Think Katniss Everdeen in Hunger Games. Realistic, flawed teen in chaos. Perfect for YA dystopian. But put that character in a military sci-fi novel, readers might bail. They expect someone more like, say, Commander Adama from Battlestar. Hard-edged, makes mistakes, but rises to the occasion.
So the character has to fit the genre's expectations, too.
Precisely. Genre-appropriate characters breathe life into familiar tropes, making them feel fresh.
Okay, so we know why this approach works. We know what kinds of genres to look for, about tropes. But how do you actually learn from what's already working in that market you've picked? How do you find the right books to, well, emulate and really dig into why they work?
Good question. And the source gives clear advice on what not to look for first.
Which is?
Big publisher books. Things like The Atlantis World, Game of Thrones, The Force Awakens. Their high rankings often come from massive publisher marketing pushes or movie tie-ins, things like that.
Stuff an indie author can't replicate.
Exactly. Tiny authors just can't mimic that kind of success directly. So you need to focus on indie published books.
How do you spot those?
Usually you can check the product details on Amazon. If it lists the publisher as Amazon Digital Services, that's a self-published book.
Okay. And then how do you find the successful indie books? The sticky ones?
You look at a few things. Check the price, usually not 99 cents, unless it's a specific sale you're analyzing. Then compare the review count to the publication date. If a book has, say, 1,000 or more reviews within a year, it's doing really well, even more if it's older.
Any specific examples from the source?
Yeah, he points to Von Hepner's The Lost Starship. Over 3,000 reviews, ranked around hashtag 585 overall, and had been selling 100, 300 copies a day for almost 2 years. Steady seller. Another is Nick Webb's Constitution. First book in a trilogy, nearly 1,300 reviews, ranked around hashtag 1,400 after 7 months. And that was his first space opera. Really impressive.
Wow.
And don't forget the also got section on Amazon. That's gold. It literally shows you what else that specific audience is buying. Great for finding comparable titles.
Okay, so you found these successful indie books in your target niche. What's the absolute #1 thing you must do to figure out why they succeeded?
Well, here's the big secret. You're going to have to actually read the books.
Right. Seems obvious, but probably overlooked.
Totally. The blurb and cover only tell you so much. You need to get inside, understand the author's voice, the pacing, how they actually use those tropes you identified. Plus, it helps you avoid accidentally copying plots, which is, important.
For sure. Did the author do this himself?
Absolutely. For his military sci-fi research, he didn't just look at lists. He rewatched Battlestar Galactica, replayed Mass Effect games, and then he specifically read those indie hits: Constitution, Warship, The Lost Starship.
And what did he find reading them?
He saw how heavily they borrowed from Battlestar. Things like the long-vanished enemy, complacent humanity, the aging starship, even a dying leader and an alcoholic executive officer. Those elements were there.
So he was seeing those major tropes in action.
Exactly. And he identified other common major tropes across them. The maverick captain with a misfit crew, the captain succeeding despite inept government or command, being outclassed by the enemy, humanity's survival looking iffy, and a giant badass spaceship on the cover. Always.
And the minor tropes came through too.
Yep. Faster than light travel, military jargon like CAG and CIC, a junior officer clashing with the captain, a sense that victory comes at a real cost. If you connect this back, readers want that familiarity. They want those pieces, but they want them used in new, interesting ways. It's about an original plot built with familiar blocks.
And did he notice other similarities beyond the story elements?
He did. Physical things, like book length. These MSF books were often around 60, 70,000 words, shorter than epic fantasy, longer than, say, erotica. Cover artwork styles were similar. The blurbs had a similar punchy feel. Even the pricing tended to fall in a specific range, like $3.99 to $5.99. Consistency across the successful ones.
This is fascinating. It goes way beyond just write a space battle. There's this whole layer of reader psychology. It's not just what tropes to use, but why readers are picking up this book, reacting to these elements.
That's exactly right. You can't just assemble tropes like Legos and expect success. You have to understand the why behind reader response. The author reflected on his own why for no such thing as werewolves, his own motivations, things like being annoyed by non-scary monsters, loving stories about vanished cultures, thinking about superpowers, a solar apocalypse.
His personal interests.
Yeah, his personal interests and fears resonated. He essentially wrote a classic thriller tapping into a desire for escape, for a new frontier, a sense of wonder, and readers responded to that feeling.
But how did he know what resonated? How do you figure that out beyond just guessing?
The million-dollar question. The answer, according to the source, is surprisingly straightforward. You mind the reviews.
The Amazon reviews.
Yep. Specifically, you focus on the detailed 5-star and 1-star reviews, especially the ones lots of people vote as helpful. They often contain the real gold.
What did he learn from his own reviews?
For no such thing as werewolves, the negative reviews often nitpicked inaccuracies. Firearms details, mixing up Saturn and Neptune, helicopter facts. What that taught him was thriller readers, his audience for that book, crave accuracy. Details matter to them.
Okay. And the positive reviews.
They raved about how he pulled together all these seemingly random cool things, werewolves, pyramids, power armor, solar apocalypse, AIDS, zombies, into a tight plot that made sense. It led to a holy shit reaction, as he put it. So by studying reviews and even looking at the profiles of reviewers to see what else they like, you get a deep sense of genre expectations.
So applying that to the military sci-fi books he studied, like Constitution and The Lost Starship.
Right. The negative reviews often said things like too close to Battlestar Galactica or complained about simplistic writing or the Kirk-like captain.
Yeah.
These often came from people with military backgrounds or those wanting hard sci-fi accuracy.
But the positive reviews.
They loved escaping their dreary lives. They wanted to jump into these fantastic worlds and save the galaxy. Those readers cared less about granular accuracy or super complex prose. They wanted the adventure, the heroism.
So that insight directly influenced his own MSF book.
Absolutely. For his next book, Destroyer, he decided to worry less about hyper-specific technical details. Instead, he focused on delivering what the positive reviews loved. The maverick captain, the plucky crew, the outdated warship, incompetent command, and ultimately, a happy ending.
Did he mention any tough choices based on that research?
He did. He specifically mentioned the trope of a female captain. His research suggested the core MSF audience at that time wasn't quite ready for that as the lead. So while he included strong female characters in other key roles, he made the strategic choice to stick with a male captain to align with the prevailing genre expectations he'd identified from reader feedback. It was a market-driven decision.
It really shows how crucial learning from feedback is. And not just positive feedback, right? Learning from what doesn't work seems just as important. You
Yeah.
mentioned Hero Born earlier, the book that crashed.
Yes, and that failure was incredibly instructive for the author. It crashed because it fundamentally didn't meet reader expectations. It tried to blend superhero tropes, young protagonist, supervillain, often a teen demographic with alien conspiracy tropes, average Joe protagonist, mystery, government cover-up.
Two different audiences.
Exactly, and there wasn't enough overlap. It ended up alienating both potential audiences because it didn't fully satisfy either one's core expectations. But, as the author says, this information is very, very useful. Why? Because it tells you who won't like the book and, importantly, why they won't like it.
Some of his mistakes are data points.
Huge data points. It highlights that idea of iteration is key. You write, publish, repeat, learn from the failures, don't get hung up on them, move on to the next project. That applies far beyond writing, really.
Absolutely. Now, given how quickly markets and tropes can shift, especially in some genres, speed seems really important. But creators often struggle with that, the need for speed versus the desire for perfection. How does the source address that tension?
That's a core challenge, for sure. The author emphasizes speed of execution is vital. Market tropes, especially in genres like romance with things like the stepbrother billionaire trend he mentions, can appear and fade really fast. Being able to produce faster helps you hit those genres while they're peaking.
So just write faster.
Well, become a faster, more consistent writer. He references other books on the topic, like 5,000 words per hour. It's framed as a long-haul game, incremental improvement. And setting deadlines, actually sticking to them, is paramount. But then there's the other side.
The perfectionism trap.
Exactly. He introduces the 80% is good enough principle,
Right.
which he admits was initially really hard for him to accept.
I bet. That sounds almost like heresy to many creative people. How did he justify that?
It was definitely a mental shift. He talks about the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, applied to publishing. The idea is that maybe 80% of your success comes from just 20% of your actions. For authors, that core 20% might just be writing consistently every day, a lot of other activities. Maybe fluff that doesn't significantly move the needle on actual sales or reader enjoyment.
Give an example.
He uses his own editing process. For No Such Thing as Werewolves and No Mere Zombie, he spent thousands on multiple rounds of editing, developmental, line edits, proofreading. But when he looked at the reviews, 99.7% of reviewers didn't mention typos or minor inaccuracies. They focused on the story, the characters, the feeling.
So the excessive polishing wasn't really for the readers.
He concluded it was mostly for his own pride, not for sales. He argues most successful books do have some one-star reviews complaining about typos or minor issues, but the vast majority still love the book. So the question becomes, how much time should you spend polishing? You need a great story, solid craft, absolutely. But polishing the same book for years, probably not the best use of time. He references Heinlein's rules: finish what you write, put it out there, start the next thing.
That makes sense. He also mentioned pen names. How do they fit in?
Strategically, pen names let you do a few things. One, segregate genres. Keep your romance readers separate from your sci-fi readers if they have different expectations. Two, experiment. Maybe try a lower level of editing on a book under a pen name like he did with his MSF book Destroyer, which only got one line edit, and see if readers notice or care. And three, it can insulate your main author brand if an experiment under a pen name doesn't take off. Protects your core fan base. He mentions big names like J.K. Rowling and Stephen King using them too.
Okay, this brings us to the final crucial piece. You've written the book to market, you've iterated, but people need to actually pick it up. Packaging. If you want people to choose your book, your product, over everything else competing for their attention, you need to grab them instantly.
This is huge. It's the magical recipe of branding, as the source calls it, and the number one ingredient.
The cover.
The cover, absolutely critical, especially the tiny thumbnail view people see when scrolling on Amazon. It has to grab the eye and instantly signal the genre. Giant spaceship for sci-fi, a couple for romance, And crucially, mimic successful self-published covers in your specific niche. Big publishers can get away with weird covers because of their marketing clout. Indie authors usually can't.
Okay, cover first. What's next?
The title. It needs to speak to the target reader, be easy to understand, and often it should connect directly to that cover image. Think about those MSF examples: Constitution, Warship, the Lost Starship, His Own Destroyer. Title often reflects the ship on the cover. Clear signaling.
Cover title, then the description.
Yep, the blurb. And this is a tough copywriting skill to master. It absolutely must hook the reader in the first sentence and have them fully invested by the third. Short, punchy sentences. Clearly state the story type by hinting at the stakes and mentioning key tropes, implicitly or explicitly. Like Dead Man being pitched as Black Magic Outlaw versus Dresden Files being Wizard Private Investigator. Immediately tells the urban fantasy reader what kind of flavor to expect.
And the last line of defense.
The Look Inside feature on Amazon, those first few chapters have got to be killer. Absolutely incredible. The author uses his own "No Such Thing as Werewolves Again" first chapter. Boom! Giant impossible pyramids, soldiers, a werewolf attack, deaths, mystery, right away.
Puts you immediately.
Exactly. That immediate genre immersion and compelling action is vital, because if readers aren't hooked in those first few pages they click away, you've lost them.
So wrapping this all up, the core message seems to be that writing to market, or creating to market, isn't really selling out in the negative sense. It's actually a strategic, more business-minded approach to creative work that dramatically increases your chances of finding an audience and achieving success. It's about deeply understanding that audience.
Precisely. And the source really drives home this idea of paying your dues. By consistently creating to market, whether it's books or anything else, you build that audience, you hone your craft, you learn from what works and what doesn't. That whole iterative process eventually gives you the freedom, the platform, and the skills to tackle those passion projects later, maybe your magnum opus, but with people actually waiting to read it.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but it is controversial. As the author predicted, many people push back hard against this idea, sometimes demonizing it without really digging into what it means.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, our listeners. Consider this. What conventional wisdom in your own field or industry might actually be holding people back from finding their audience or achieving real success? What if truly understanding your market, whether that's readers, customers, clients, whoever, means challenging some common assumptions? What if it means taking an approach that others might dismiss or even criticize? What hidden opportunities might that reveal for you?